I'd hope that everyone at least knows the name of Starcraft. If not, please finish this video and then go play the original game. There's no working computer that can't play the original, and it, along with the Warcraft series, are the pinnacles of the RTS genre. With that said, we now come to the culmination of a near 20-year saga with Starcraft II: Legacy of the Void. Church here, and welcome to the Game Grinder. Today we'll be reviewing Starcraft II: Legacy of the Void. Starcraft II: Legacy of the Void was developed and published by the legendary studio Blizzard Entertainment, and this is the third and last game of the Starcraft II trilogy. The original Starcraft told the story of our main characters through 3 different campaigns covering the events of 3 races: the human Terrans, the advanced alien Protoss, and the ferocious animal or insect like Zerg, and its expansion as well. Starcraft II took a different approach, giving each race its own game covering the overall story arcs included within. Starcraft II: Legacy of the Void was released in November of 2015 for the PC. As I've mentioned, and for those unfamiliar with StarCraft or the RTS genre, these are real-time strategy games. The basic gameplay involves controlling various units and base building dependent on gaining resources, allowing building, all while opponents do the same. Many games are present in the genre, like Command & Conquer, Age of Empires, and Supreme Commander, but Warcraft and Starcraft are the games that every other game aspires to be. These games took a simple concept, added in an incredible amounts of depth to the gameplay itself, and the big allure for these games for myself are the finely crafted single-player campaigns. These aren't just great for the incredible stories they tell, but takes a simple game genre like the RTS, and uses them to tell these sagas in a way that no other game in the genre has been able to do, besides perhaps Command & Conquer. Of course, StarCraft is most well known for its multiplayer experience and has remained one of the largest and most competitive esports scenes in the world, but for the sake of this review, I'll just be covering the single-player story campaign. I will briefly cover what else is included, because regardless of what I love StarCraft for, it seems the vast majority of people who play go for the online scene rather than the story mode. In terms of gameplay, if you've played any Blizzard RTS game, then you should know what to expect. For those who aren't familiar with the formula, this is just the basic gist of things. In most instances, from single player to multiplayer, you'll start out with a command center of sorts. The initial structure that is required for a base that will build our initial workers that will gather resources, and may eventually build more structures for additional units or upgrades. The driving factor of building relies on resources, either minerals or gas. When we have the funds, we may build additional buildings, units, or upgrades. From here, it then just boils down to building necessary units to defeat our enemies who are doing the same thing. Added to the base building, unit management is important, as every race in StarCraft has units that may be weak or strong against other opposing units. That's where the strategy aspect comes in. You don't necessarily need to know what's better than what, especially in the story mode where I usually just build mass armies of units I liked, sometimes called a ball, and just roll over whatever obstacle I needed to clear. Skill in this game isn't too important in the single player campaigns, but incredibly important when it comes to playing multiplayer. The story campaign is a great way to get familiar with the game and how to play it if one is interested in trying out the online scene. The multiplayer is the real meat and potatoes of the RTS genre, pitting player versus player in strategic battles to the death, requiring adaptation, quick thinking, and fast mouse and keyboard skills, aka micro, to dominate. The online modes are quite robust, featuring a variety of gameplay options such as 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, 4v4, free-for-all, versus AI, and a massive amount of other custom arcade mode games that are mostly fun scenarios covering everything from challenges to dungeon crawler to tower defense. There is a large online competitive community for StarCraft, though it's not the powerhouse it used to be, mostly due to wide adaptation of the MOBA genre, but there are still plenty of folks online to game with. With the various versus modes, and with the ability to play ranked or unranked, leads to a lot of options to choose from, which leads to a ton of content. Of course, with any game these days, especially Blizzard games, there's a massive amount of unlockables, from profile portraits to unit skins and logos, to the standard massive list of possible achievements to achieve. As we move on to the story, I'd like to just briefly cover how the single-player gameplay goes. In many ways, it's very similar how it's played online, but the campaign has a little bit more structure to it with the story integration. Besides the many incredible Blizzard famous cinematic scenes, before each mission we'll have some general story progress through said scenes, or we'll find ourselves on the Spear of Adun, the spacecraft mobile base of our Protoss forces. Once on the ship, we'll be able to interact with many other important supporting characters, and also be able to upgrade our forces and choose some new abilities to make use of during battles. This is also where a large portion of the world building and lore takes place. Once we choose a mission, we'll get an initial briefing talking about our next objective. Here we can also see any additional special circumstances that may reward bonuses such as the Solarite resource that gives us more points to allocate to abilities, and bonus achievements. Moving into the mission itself will play out in two ways, either introduced by a cinematic scene, or the more often in-game introduction of mission objectives, or story-related dialogue between the main character. How missions will typically play out is like this. Once the initial dialogue is over, we'll usually start off at our base, though sometimes we'll have more side-off missions where we control a small force or even sometimes the main heroes. From here, we'll take over and need to fulfill whatever requirements are needed to complete the mission, while choosing to do optional side missions, or not. Throughout each mission, there are often many dialogue events between main characters, and sometimes with enemies depending on circumstances. Then after completing said mission, we may be presented with another cinematic in-game scene, or return to our main spacecraft base. Missions may last anywhere from 10 to 45 minutes depending on requirements, if optional objectives are completed, or the pace we play at. There's also an initial difficulty selector from easy, normal, and hard usually has some extra achievements that may be earned. It's also worth mentioning that, much like the previous entries in the Starcraft series, Legacy of the Void introduces a decent variety of new units, and brings back many of the classic units and structures from the original games to further enhance choices in unit building. Through the missions, the game introduces us to the various units and how they can be best made use of, and really does a good job of teaching us mechanics through gameplay instead of non-immersive tutorials. Before moving on, I'd like to mention that I will be talking about some spoilers, so if you'd like to skip ahead, click on the annotation.
As it was foretold, Amon, the Dark God, lives again. If any hope remains for our galaxy, it lies in the hands of the Zelnaga.
So on to the story then. Starcraft II, Legacy of the Void is the third entry in this trilogy, and continues off immediately where Starcraft II, Heart of the Swarm left off. One really neat addition is shortly before Legacy was released, Blizzard had released a few bonus missions, named Whispers of Oblivion, which connected Swarm and Legacy together, directly covering Zeratul investigation into the Zelnaga prophecy. This prophecy leads Zeratul on a hunt to discover Amon, a creature who plots to wipe out all life in the universe with its army of Protoss-Zerg hybrid. In the last game, the once human, now Zerg queen, Kerrigan, had learned from Zeratul that Amon was responsible for the Zerg swarm, and was once again plotting to wipe out all other life from the universe. Zeratul then brings his findings to the current leader of the Protoss, Artanis, and informs him about the present and growing danger of Amon, and sets the wheels in motion to stop him. During Artanis' crusade to reclaim the Protoss homeworld Ire, Amon awakes and seizes control of the vast Protoss force through their telepathic connections with one another via the force called the Kala. Few Protoss besides the Dark Templar are unaffected by this form of mind control, and Zeratul manages to sever Artanis' connection to the Kala by severing his nerve cords, and gives his life in the process. Artanis is tasked with seeking out a keystone created by the creators of life, the Zelnaga, which is the same artifact that removed Kerrigan's infestation in the Wings of Liberty campaign. Amon begins to decimate the Korpulu sector, and Artanis arrives just in time to aid Jim Raynor and Valerian Manx before securing the keystone. The Protoss forces then head to Shakuras to revive ancient weapons known as the Purifiers to aid in the fight, and Artanis recruits matriarch Verazan of the Dark Templar, and once securing the Purifiers, finds that Phoenix has been resurrected as a Purifier. In an attempt to halt Amon's capture of Shakuras, using the Spear of Adun, the planet is destroyed. Once the Keystone's information is accessed, Artanis then heads to the Zelnaga homeworld of Ulnar, a massive relic hidden within an inhospitable location of space. Upon arrival, Artanis finds Kerrigan has come there with the same agenda, and then join forces in hopes of recruiting the Zelnaga, but find they have all been slain by Amon. During this time, the Tal'Darim, a Protoss force who worships Amon, invades the Spear of Adun, and their leader Alarak is recruited as he believes his people have been betrayed by their false god. With all the remaining Protoss factions united, they lead an assault on Ire, and are finally able to banish Amon into the Void, and save Ire in the process. Eventually, Artanis and Raynor are summoned by Kerrigan to Ulnar to invade the Void and destroy Amon once and for all. They are able to save an imprisoned Zelnaga Oros, who tells them that only a Zelnaga can defeat Amon. Kerrigan is the only person powerful enough to survive this ascension, and she then becomes one with Oros, and with the combined efforts of the Terrans, Protoss, and Zerg, are finally able to destroy Amon. With the universe free of this threat, the Terran and Protoss usher in a new age of peace and prosperity, and the new Zerg queen, Zagara, reclaims Char for the Brood. As years pass, we'll eventually find Jim Raynor in the same bar he was found at the beginning of the Starcraft II saga, and through the door we see Kerrigan, who's taken on human form again. Jim leaves his badge, and together they leave, never to be seen again.
You about ready to get out of here, cowboy?
Hell, it's about time.
And with that, the near 20-year saga of StarCraft comes to an end. Each release in this series has been carefully crafted, and the effort definitely shows. StarCraft has always been a leader of its genre, paying utmost attention to the characters and lore that the universe builds. The storytelling, character voice acting, and delivery are some of the best in the industry. I said it before and I'll say it again, anything Blizzard creates, whether you're a fan or not, are nothing short of top-notch. They are truly one of the few game developers that do not sacrifice integrity for a quick buck and put out the best product they possibly can. Each series they've made should be a shining example to the rest of the gaming industry, from StarCraft to Warcraft, Diablo, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, and probably the upcoming Overwatch as well. The amount of detail and creativity put into this universe is impressive, and lends itself directly to the immersive world that we spend so many hours in. Of course, again, I'll mention the absolutely stunning Blizzard cinematics. When it comes to CGI, they are the leaders. The soundtrack is pretty amazing as well, hitting on all the moods and always doing what it needs to enhance the overall experience. Some tracks from the series are pretty legendary at this point. I knew this was going to be one of my favorite games of 2015, but I also knew this was the possible end of the StarCraft story. Besides a few DLC missions that Blizzard has planned, which is actually a new thing for them, the future of StarCraft is unknown. Like I said, the story has been in the works for almost 20 years, and when the story, characters, gameplay, the graphics, and soundtrack are held in such high regard, there's a lot to be invested on the inside. And with that said, this is a series that I think everyone should play at least once, and this release is no exception. Thanks for checking out my review of StarCraft II: Legacy of the Void. What were your thoughts on the game? Have you played the series before? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked what you've seen or heard, please give the video a like, a share, and subscribe to see future videos. I'm on Twitter and Facebook as well, and I post a lot of great game-related content there, and of course links are in the description. Until next time on the Game Grinder.